It had been the best summer of her life, but also the worst. She had lost so much, but she had found courage, and for the first time, she felt like she had a future. It was time to leave the past behind. She decided to look at the photos one last time. The old woman in the next seat leaned in. Kristal paused for a moment. Did she really know these people? Or was she just making it up on the spot? What if she had answered differently? Would her memories of them change? She tried not to think about it. After all, it was natural for her mind to be scattered, considering what she had been through. The final photograph was the one of her and the boy. Kristal hesitated. She didn't know what to say. He was the reason she had made it this far, but then just the thought of it made her nauseous. Then something even more horrible dawned on her. When she saw the eagle, her blood ran cold. A million thoughts rushed through her head. How could she have been so stupid to think she'd just get on a train and get away? She was naive, and now reality had caught up with her. This time, she had nowhere to run. After all, she was still the frail little girl she had always been, and he was much too strong. Maybe he was right, Kristal thought. Maybe it was her own fault. But did it really have to end this way? Funny maybe, but thrilling and exciting was a bit of an exaggeration. In fact, the circus had fallen far since its golden days. Over the last couple of years, many performers had left. But who could blame them? After all, they joined the circus expecting adventure. When they learned that the ringmaster refused to travel, they eventually got bored and moved on with their lives. The only performers left were those who had nowhere else to go. The circus was their safe haven. It didn't matter to them that the show was dull. They just wanted to escape the real world. Kristal wasn't one of the performers, but she still couldn't leave the circus. If anything, she felt like a prisoner. Sure, the circus was safe, but it was also deadly monotonous. She was tired of hiding from the rest of the world. When would it be her turn for some adventure? Sun touched her skin. She had been blindsided by summer. It was as if Mother Nature had fallen asleep on the job, only to wake up and fast forward several months overnight. For a moment, nothing else mattered. The voice was like a cloud intercepting the rays of light. Then she saw the boy. Kristal knew that opportunities like this don't grow on trees. Maybe this was her only chance to leave the circus. The boy snapped a photo and put it in his pocket. They said their goodbyes for now. Kristal was happy about meeting the boy, but could she really run off with him? It's not like the others would mind. They probably wouldn't even notice she was gone until they ran out of clean underwear. But she still owed the ringmaster a big one. She decided to give the circus one last chance. Her mind would be made up by the morning. It was time for dinner. She could smell the stew from the caravan. The fortune-telling machine was old. While it did have a coin slot, Kristal had discovered it could also be started with a well-placed slap. Kristal gave it a whack. It always said the same thing. Kristal figured the ringmaster had programmed it. The only thing inside the ticket booth was the footstool the ringmaster used to reach over the counter. That, and a tip jar with 2 popsicle sticks and a lonely shirt button. Kristal shivered when she looked at the giant teddy bear. It was supposed to be an obtainable prize back when they had games at the circus, but that was a scam. Now it just stood there, staring at her in the night. The flag was attached to a long, sturdy rope, but it was entangled at the top of the pole. It was a Gordian knot only a pair of scissors could sort out. The tall lady's cat was tormenting a pigeon. It hissed when Kristal came close. It wouldn't let her pass. She would need something to shoo it away with. The door to the stables was locked. Kristal wasn't allowed to enter without supervision. Obviously, the cat couldn't speak, but if it could, it would probably have said something like, When the cat was gone, the bird chirped. Everyone knows birds can't speak either, but Kristal imagined it had something to say. Kristal couldn't decipher the name on the envelope. She would have to ask around to find its recipient. The merry-go-round had reminded Kristal of the mechanic who used to live at the circus. The two of them got along well, and the mechanic used to let Kristal ride the merry-go-round after the circus had closed for the day. Now the big chunk of metal just stood there as a monument of what the circus used to be. The ringmaster was in a wild argument with a large officer. This was the sheriff. His presence meant trouble for the circus. He was a disciple of the eagle, the tyrant who ruled the country. Their affiliation was official by the emblem he carried on his chest. Before Kristal came close enough to hear their conversation, the ringmaster slammed the door in the sheriff's face. The sheriff pushed Kristal aside and left the circus. This was the bear woman. She was the most recent addition to the circus crew. Why she chose to join the circus at the time when most of the performers were quitting remained a mystery to Kristal. She was taciturn and had a habit of sleeping during the day. Kristal didn't mind though. In fact, she found their relationship rather liberating. A sturdy bowl, great for serving hot stew. The stew smelled delicious, but if she wanted some, she would need a bowl. Kristal filled the bowl with stew, but this serving was not for her. Kristal had been told to be careful with this teapot. It was made of china and supposedly very fragile. Kristal had once heard of a China girl living in another circus. The two of them must have a lot in common, she thought. She wished she could meet the girl of China. The well-dressed, lanky woman was prima donna Luciana Valentina Scorticini. Kristal called her the tall lady for simplicity. She used to be a famous opera singer, or at least so she claimed, but she had left that life behind when she joined the circus. When the ringmaster brought Kristal to the circus, the tall lady protested. Kristal never really understood why, but it was clear that the tall lady hated her guts. At first Kristal felt rejected, but eventually the tall lady grew on her. Kristal began to see through the insults and recognized a friendly tone behind the cold facade. Kristal figured that banter was just the way the tall lady connected with people, and so she played along. Kristal had no choice but to comply. It was her job to serve the circus performers after all. But where would she find water? Whatever Kristal was planning, it wouldn't work. The clown, a man in his best years, he was juggling, dancing and telling jokes all day long. He could put a smile on anyone. Kristal admired him. The clown was busy. It seemed only food could take his mind off juggling. They were regular juggling pins. Kristal had no reason to take them. Kristal felt remorse over beating up the cat earlier, but she wasn't in the mood to go looking for it. Finding the recipient to the letter seemed like a more important task. After that, she could search for the cat if it was still missing. Kristal found it odd that the old generator was always running, despite the circus using very little electricity. Someone had just been in there and it smelled awful. The girl in the back was Strong Girl. She was bold, cheerful and athletic. Let's just say Kristal admired Strong Girl. Perhaps her admiration was a bit excessive, because it made her stutter and lose words around Strong Girl. Which was ironic, since all she wanted was for Strong Girl to like her. Better be a stranger than a fool, Kristal thought, and kept her distance. But it made her miserable. Kristal reached out to hand over the letter, but she fumbled and dropped it. The letter was lying on the ground in front of them, but the next moment the wind grabbed hold of it and pushed it in under the tool shed door. There was no reason to panic. Kristal calmly walked over to the shed. But the door wouldn't budge. It was locked. So, after a series of unfortunate events, the letter was behind the locked tool shed door and the clown had been served the key for dinner. Kristal felt responsible to sort out this mess. So the key was gone. Kristal's stomach turned upside down just thinking about having to tell Strong Girl the bad news. But perhaps she didn't have to. It was getting late, and she still had to find the tall lady's cat before she could call it a day. strong girl was leaning over the bare woman as Kristal entered the caravan. Kristal climbed into bed, but she still had 1,000 questions. So much had happened today. Her head was spinning. She was anxious and felt lonelier than ever because despite being surrounded by people, she had no one to talk to. Then she thought of the boy and how sweet he was. He noticed her. He understood her. He wanted to help her. He offered that human connection she was longing for. If she left with him, she wouldn't have to worry about the sheriff, the key, or anything. The thought of running away gave Kristal a moment of relief, and she soon fell into slumber. Kristal woke up by a gentle knocking. She scratched her eyes and saw the boy smiling on the other side of the window. They did look delicious though, so she took a nibble. Kristal screamed, but her voice was so feeble no one heard her. She realized it wasn't the room which expanded, it was she who had shrunk. Then everything began shrinking again, and she realized it was only a moment until she would return to normal size. She hurried past the bear woman while she was small enough to go unnoticed. By the time she exited the caravan, she returned to regular size. The boy was wrong. The giant teddy bear did swallow him whole. The boy knew exactly what to do. He took Kristal's hand and showed the way. She could see everything from above, and nothing was in her way. This was freedom, and it was exactly what she had always dreamt of. She was so happy. If there was ever time to burst into song as if she were in a musical, this was it. But her singing voice was terrible, and she'd rather not ruin the moment. Instead, she waved at a passing flock of geese, and they greeted her back with a So the plan was to steal the ringmaster's car, which was easier said than done. But at least these keys weren't inside someone's stomach. The car keys were inside the apartment, so Kristal had no choice but to get rid of the sheriff first. But how? She thought long and hard. She had been stung by a wasp. She looked around and saw a whole swarm. Maybe she could use that somehow. Honey, the edible gold. The others wouldn't be happy if she took it all for herself. But this was for someone else. Kristal stealthily smeared honey on the sheriff's back and took a step back to hide. As expected, the wasps gathered around the sheriff. The car keys were lying on top of the desk, but it was a bad idea to try to grab the keys while the ringmaster was watching. The tiny man was the ringmaster. He was the owner of the circus and Kristal's boss. Like most people, Kristal didn't exactly worship her boss. But if she had to name one quality, it would be his stage voice. Only that it wasn't just his stage voice, it was also his normal voice. The way he emphasized certain words was great for building suspense. But in regular conversations, it sounded contrived, almost robotic. But even worse was that he didn't seem to understand the difference between a manager-employee relationship and friendship. Needless to say, he was not the ideal type of boss. Still, Kristal had much to be grateful for, so she put up with his many flaws. Watchdog was what he called the bear woman. It was not a bad idea to check with her first, as it was her job to survey the circus at night. Kristal would rather not get dragged into this mess, but since the ringmaster wouldn't leave his apartment without the hat, she had no choice but to, if she wanted to grab the car keys in secret. The bear woman was having breakfast, or Kristal wasn't sure it could be called breakfast when she was also getting ready for bed. So, while there was no proof, Kristal decided to start with interrogating the tall lady. She was usually in the stables this time of day. The tall lady was the lead suspect in the missing hat investigation. But Kristal had to be smooth if she wanted to get her to confess the crime. The tall lady continued to make unintelligible noises. She appeared to be half asleep. Kristal figured that if she wanted answers, she would need to energize her. So before Kristal could interrogate the tall lady, she had to care for the horse. The tall lady had suggested it needed something to eat. It was an advertisement for the circus. It showcased the twin dancers who used to be part of the show. The twins' beauty made them popular among the male visitors, less so with the wives. While they were great dancers, they weren't exactly geniuses. One day Kristal found the twins staring at a box of orange juice. When she asked them what was going on, they explained that they were trying to concentrate because the juice box said so. The box was sealed, but Kristal was too much of the curious kind not to open it. The inside appeared to be a delivery of electronic components, most likely intended for the mechanic who had left the circus some time ago, which would explain why it was unopened. Most of it was wires and micro-components. The only thing which seemed useful to Kristal was a 9-volt transistor battery. Kristal was not allowed to pat the horse without the tall lady's consent. It was a simple pot made of ceramics. While ceramic was heavy and looked sturdy, she had been told it was in fact no more reliable than glass. For a moment she was happy that she was the girl of glass and not the girl of ceramic. So Kristal had agreed to help the clown escape average-sized Beatrice. Apparently, friction was the biggest problem. The buzzing was almost deafening. Kristal imagined a diffuse voice coming from the center of the swarm. The letter seemed to be the only thing on Stronggirl's mind, but Kristal was planning to be long gone before Stronggirl discovered the key was inside the clown's stomach. They both pulled with all their strength, but it wasn't enough. Kristal thought long and hard, but she couldn't come up with a solution. Kristal greased the borehole, grabbed the clown around his neck and pulled as hard as she could. The grease had reduced the friction to absolute zero, and the detonation sent the clown flying with incredible force. He flew so far he ripped a hole in the tent ceiling and landed on the outside. So while the tall lady had entered the ringmaster's apartment to leave a note, she claimed not to have touched the hat. Considering the nature of their conversation, Kristal had no reason to doubt the information the tall lady had given. Kristal felt a bit sympathetic, but she didn't have time to get involved in someone else's love drama. But why was the note covered in chocolate? Kristal's best lead now was interrogating the clown. Apparently, he too had left the caravan in the middle of the night. So the clown claimed to be innocent, and Kristal's next lead was to interrogate Strong Girl. Kristal had a feeling Strong Girl wouldn't talk unless we returned the letter first. Fortunately, the key was now out of the clown's stomach. Unfortunately, it was deep in the outhouse tank. But Kristal had a plan. It was a disgusting plan, but a plan nevertheless. Kristal took a deep breath and leaned in. She almost barfed in her mouth when she saw the mountain of poo. It took a few attempts to get the key on the tooth hook, but eventually she managed to pull it up. As Kristal exited the outhouse, the house blocked itself from the inside. The ladder was surprisingly light, so Kristal didn't mind carrying it with her. So it turned out Strong Girl was not the thief. But her late-night activities at least explained why the napkin note was covered in chocolate. It was time to confront the bear woman. Kristal noticed something moving in the corner of her eye. It looked like the bear woman's headpiece was dragging along the floor. It must be the cat, she figured. But it was moving so slowly. Was it sick? She turned around and saw that it was, in fact, the bear woman's headpiece on the floor. She lifted it from the ground, and a rat stared back at her under the headpiece. It squeaked loudly and ran off. Kristal was in shock. Why was the rat trying to get away with the bear woman's headpiece? Kristal replaced the old battery in the radio with a new one. The radio came alive, but it didn't get any reception. Kristal mounted the screwdriver onto the radio as an antenna. With the screwdriver antenna and the new battery, the radio seemed to work. Kristal hesitantly tuned in to the Eagle broadcasting channel. The next program was just about to start. Kristal got so upset, she punched the radio. The rat leaped towards the exit. But it got away again. At least this time, Kristal saw it jump down the well. Kristal inserted the shirt button into the coin slot. Surprisingly, it fit perfectly, and the fortune-telling machine came alive. Kristal picked up the scissors. They would probably come in handy. Kristal climbed to the top and cut loose the rope. Even though the bad weather, she was spellbound by the view. From up there, she could see everything. The trees, the lakes, the mountain. Soon she would go to all these places with the boy. Her attention drifted away for a moment. She lost her grip and fell. This was the end, she thought. When she hit the ground, she would shatter into a million pieces. Kristal embraced the impact. The impact was soft. She had landed on the giant teddy bear and safely slided down to the ground. Kristal tied the rope to the top of the well and climbed down. Kristal touched the inside of the wall. There was a draft coming from a crack in the structure. She leaned against the wall, thinking how she would solve this puzzle. Then the wall caved in by the pressure of her weight. The situation indeed looked grim for Kristal. Then a majestic creature leaped into the scene. As the rats ran off into the shadows and Kristal picked up the ringmaster's hat, she noticed something else on the ground. It was a stack of documents. While she couldn't read the text, her curiosity was piqued by the butterfly emblem in the bottom right corner. Maybe someone could decipher it for her. But she had a feeling she had to be careful with whom she showed it to. The gates to the sewers were kept shut by a combination lock. Apparently, the ringmaster was so scared of spiders that he couldn't even watch. The spider also seemed intimidated and crawled back in under the hat. The ringmaster was still covering his eyes. Now was a good time to take the car keys. The spider could wait. Little did the ringmaster consider that Kristal was the girl of glass, and like a bull in a china shop, he knocked her over. Kristal hit her head against the desk, but she was more shocked than hurt. Kristal got the car keys, but she had messed up royally. She didn't mean all those things she said. She had just been caught up in the moment. But what could she do? It was too late to take it back. She tried not to think about it. Kristal had finally obtained the car keys. She just had to show them to the boy. The boy looked under the hood to inspect the engine one last time before they drive off. So the plan was to access the outhouse from beneath, but she had to find appropriate footwear before she could enter the sewers. Kristal climbed the ladder and crawled through the hole in the tent roof. Then she crawled out on the beam as if there was no tomorrow. She managed to grab the Wellingtons, but as if she was cursed, she once again lost her balance and fell. This time, there was no soft teddy bear to land on. But there happened to be an unusually tall lady there to catch her. Neither Kristal knew what to say. At least she had the Wellingtons. She put them on. Kristal entered the code the boy had read from the rebel document. The combination lock made a clicking sound and opened, and the Wellingtons kept her feet dry. Kristal was in luck, as the rebel document had suggested. The outhouse hole was accessible from the other side of the tunnel, but between her and the hole was a large alligator. Kristal's plan was to tickle the alligator, but she was not stupid enough to use her own hands for it. Kristal had nothing more to say to Lola, the tall lady, but she felt good about connecting with her. The bear woman dove right into the crime section. The bear woman was too busy reading the newspaper to notice Kristal taking the loaf. Kristal put a piece of bread on the hood to attract the goose. It worked. The goose carefully jumped down from the roof. Kristal gently plucked a tail feather from the goose. Kristal put the feather next to the alligator, but how would it use it? Its arms were too short. Kristal carefully walked past the alligator. The smell was awful, but she took another deep breath and heaved herself up. Indeed it was, but the lamp had been on all night and completely drained the battery. She figured she could use the generator to charge it. Kristal knew exactly what had to be done, and she approached the generator with confidence. Kristal connected the battery to the generator to charge it. Turns out she had no idea what she was doing after all. The generator made a violent poof sound and died. She had managed to blow a fuse. Still, no problem, she thought. She just had to climb the pylon to access the fuse box. Kristal climbed the pylon and successfully replaced the busted fuse. Then she safely climbed down and put her feet on the ground. No time for more accidents, she thought. But as the old saying goes, don't count your chickens before they hatch. The last thing she heard was a deafening crackling noise. She wasn't sure if it was she who had shattered, or if the world had ended. Everything was black. This was exactly what Kristal had wanted since the day she arrived at the circus. Yet, it did nothing but tie knots in her stomach. Kristal looked at their smiling faces. Was this the last time she saw them? Strangely, she felt closer to them than ever before. But it was too late to back out now. She could not stop thinking about the boy. He must be wondering what happened to her. She was too late. The boy was gone. Kristal left the battery by the car and returned to the caravan. It had been a long day, and all the enthusiasm had left her like the air escapes an old balloon. But it wasn't all bad. She had gotten to know the circus crew a little better. Sure, they had their flaws, but so did Kristal. Perhaps she belonged in the circus after all. Tomorrow she would apologize to those she had been hard on and show more appreciation, she told herself. And the ringmaster had announced that the circus would start traveling, so she would get a change of surroundings anyway. Before falling asleep, Kristal was remarkably content. Maybe things had turned out for the best in the end. Kristal awoke by a familiar voice. She called out, but no one answered. When she heard the disembodied voice again, she assumed she was dreaming. But she was not. This was the second night in a row she had entered a realm between the dream world and her own. And this would not be the last time. Her nightly visits were meant to prepare her for what was to come, but she was not yet ready. She called out to the disembodied voice again, but it did not answer her. Then she saw the bear woman in her usual position, only that this was not the bear woman. The being, which only shared appearance with the bear woman, was shuffling a deck of cards. Kristal felt a strange force pulling her towards the table. The being did not answer Kristal either, and instead placed 4 tarot cards on the table. The Tower, the Moon, the Lovers, and Temperance. Kristal had never read tarot cards before, but strangely they spoke to her. The Tower warned of disaster. The only disaster she could think of was the sheriff, and they had averted that by agreeing to leave the area. The moon represented fear and anxiety. Again, Kristal was confused. She was less anxious now than before, and she had nothing to fear. The lovers sang of relationship and union. Could it mean the tall lady and the ringmaster would end up together? It certainly didn't mean her and the boy. He was gone, and she wasn't even sure she had feelings for him in the first place. Temperance meant patience and purpose. This one Kristal could relate to. She had definitely displayed patience over the last couple of years, but a purpose she had not found yet. Maybe that would come to her now. After all 4 cards had been placed on the table, the being made pairs of them while never breaking eye contact with Kristal. As the being stared into Kristal's eyes, the room became shrouded in darkness. From the tarot cards, strange creatures spawned, and they lined up as if they were going to fight each other. Kristal understood it was a game, and then the rules just came to her. She was expected to exploit the weaknesses and strengths of each creature. Fire was weak to stone, but strong against ice. Water was strong against ice, but weak to stone. Kristal had lost, and her presence in this world began to fade. The goose did not cry this morning. Kristal awoke by herself. She had overslept. Everyone else had already left the caravan. Then she remembered that today was the day they would become a traveling circus. She jumped out of bed with excitement. Kristal embraced the sun after yesterday's rain. After all that had happened, she was happy she hadn't run away with the boy. But her stomach turned upside down when she saw the sheriff. Kristal hesitated, but only to take a deep breath. She would not let her voice be suffocated anymore. This time, she was ready to face reality, even if that meant she too would be thrown in jail. As the sheriff approached her, the temperature dropped. She was shivering. But then, like a miracle, the flightless goose took a leap and soared into the sky. Even the sheriff was distracted by this sudden event, and he did not see the cat approaching his feet for a sneak attack. The cat bit so hard the teeth penetrated the leather boot and caused the sheriff great pain. The next moment, something warm grabbed her cold body of glass. It was a hand of flesh and blood, but it felt like a furnace heating up the entire world again. The boy had appeared out of nowhere. For a moment, everything else disappeared. She was floating on air and barely noticed that the boy pulled her into the car and drove off. Once in the car, her mind returned from the skies. Kristal opened the locker and found a necklace made of broken glass. And just like that, Kristal let the fate of the circus crew slip her mind. And soon, she let her consciousness slip as well.
Jag kämpar med att vara större än jag är. Vill ta mig bort vart helst, men inte här. Världens alla skakningar kantar hårda underlag. Ville vila mig till mod, men har gjort mig svag. Som genom glas ser jag äventyr, som genom glas en värld. Önskar att någon kunde visa vägen. Jag har en längtan ute i mörgen. Jag ska flyga över bergen och kommer aldrig mer tillbaks, blir fri. Klipper alla gamla band, en dröm jag bär i mig. Bli sann.
Maybe he was right, Kristal thought. Maybe it was her own fault. But did it really have to end this way? Yes, death is what it is. Why do you fear death when life has been nothing but suffering? Death is the gift of a new beginning, Kristal. It is an opportunity to let the old make room for the new. You know who I am. I have always been with you. No, a part can be removed from the whole. We are inseparable. I am you. This is the end of the girl of glass. But it is only the beginning of your legend. This is your... Kristal, you have a great dormant power within you. Your glass body is merely a vessel. Exactly, and it is time you hatched. Fear is for the lonely. I am with you. Just exhale and cut the ties that bind you. I will embrace you on the other side. The tingling sensation, do you feel it? Focus your mind on that. Now reach for it. Accept its gift. Well done. You are beautiful, Kristal. I am proud of you. But many hardships still lie ahead. And I must ask, do you seek challenge? Consider your words. What you choose now will impact many battles we have ahead of us. Are you sure? You will not be able to change this later. I respect your decision. Under these conditions, all you need to do is survive your opponent. Now, in this form, you may be strong, but your full power is still not realized. Your wings will need more time. But this should be enough to get your revenge on Sheriff. Look at that waste of skin. As soon as the roles are reversed, he nearly died.